Hello everybody, this is Toys R Us, and for this very special video I'm joined by two incredibly special guests. I'm sure they don't need any introduction, but I'm going to ask them very quickly just to introduce themselves. And what we're going to be doing with this video is it's a mini interview. It's just a mini chat talking about all these things, these robots that we've loved for nearly 40 years now. So it's going to be a great insight to their childhood with the toys. And yeah, I suppose getting a few of the questions asked that we'd all like to know from these incredible Hasbro designers. Over to you guys.
Hey, how you doing? Mark, been a long time Transformers fan ever since I was a small kid. I'm a product designer on mainly Generations line, a lot of the fan collector stuff, a lot of the exclusives, Shattered Glass, a lot of cool things. And I've been on the brand and at Hasbro for quite a long time. I think I'm coming up on 14 years or something like that. Wow. So
there you go. Thanks.
Wow. And hi, I'm Evan, designer on Transformers as well. Been on the brand for a couple of years now, and I've bounced around Hasbro, working on many different things over the years. Once I got my teeth in Transformers, I'm just not letting go. So I'm hoping I'm not going anywhere. I mostly work on studio series and fan stuff with Mark. So yeah, happy to be here.
Brilliant. That's great. So I've just got a couple of little categories. So we're going to talk some early memories first and foremost, because again, I'm sure the reason, as we've just said, why we've got so much in common is because we all shared or had great memories of these figures as children. Then I've got just a few simple versus questions just for a bit of fun. And then again, some of you've answered a couple of the questions already with regards to Hasbro, etc. But that's just the way it's going to flow. And we might as well start off with then. So what was the first Transformer that you either got for a gift or you were lucky enough to pick for yourself? Evan might as well go first because he's on screen.
I guess I'll go first. My very first figure.
Oh, he's got it. Do you have it on the shelf?
Wow, he's lucky enough to have it.
Oh, man.
Oh, Roadbuster's going to fall over, though. I'm going to get him off.
Oh, no.
My very first was Jetfire. And actually, this is because it was, we had family friends that had older kids.
Yeah.
By the time I was a child, like when I was like 3 or 4, Transformers was in syndication, and it aired after episodes of like Voltron, and I became infatuated with it. Family friends' kids had like grown up and they're like, oh, we don't want these anymore. And so he just gave this to me, and it was like, this is the best thing ever. So he became like Jetfire became like one of my favorite toys and characters.
Is that your actual original one from childhood, or is it one you've got new? Because he looks a bit white. He looks too white to be an original, I think.
Oh, you have a good eye. The one that I had as a child, my brother was playing with it one day, and its arm like exploded off of it just because the engineering on this guy, I didn't understand as a kid the way that they did like the ratcheting joints of the shoulder and how it's like a screw with a spring in it. So it's like the more you play with it, the easier it is for the screw to come undone and the arm would just pop off. But when I was a child, it was like, you broke my toy. So he got this for me when I turned like 16. It's like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry that happened. And then as an adult, when I was playing with it, the arm popped off again. And I was immediately recognized what the problem was, because it's what I kind of do for a living now. So it's one of those things where it's just like, oh, well, of course, if I only knew as a child, I would have been able to fix it and I wouldn't have gotten angry at him.
It's crazy you say that, because mine's been on a shelf for over 10 years and I didn't even realize it. Someone asked me to do a bookcase video, and again, it just popped out and it was hanging there. And I hadn't touched it or played with it or anything. And funnily enough, somebody commented, oh, it's a dead easy fix. Take the sticker off, undo the screw, tighten it up, and that's it. And it's literally, it obviously happens as obviously very commonly. So there you go.
Yeah, it was,
I never had that Jetfire, actually. I mean, that was just one of those mech'd out, awesome looking Transformers that a friend had, but I never actually had them. But that's
classic
awesome
robot design that we slapped the Transformer label on in the 80s. So, yeah,
like Roadbuster as well, obviously.
Yeah, but Mark, I guess it's your turn.
That's awesome. You know what? I wish I could like go grab on my shelf my first one, but I can't. Unfortunately, I actually lost a lot of my collection. Because this was actually very crushing story. And my mom actually donated a large amount of my G1
classic
collection.
parent move. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was great. It was definitely crushing at the time, but I mean, I've obviously forgiven her because she's my mom and she's amazing. But that so I actually have been trying over the years to try to get like a couple here and there that kind of fulfill the ones that I used to like obsess about. But my first one was actually Astro Train.
Wow.
And I love that toy. And obviously I'm like obsessed with Decepticons. I'm Decepticons forever. So that toy almost like solidified a lot of things for me in my fandom for years to come, forever, really. Like, and I always, as a kid, I kind of always gravitated more towards a lot of the Decepticons. I think it was the color schemes that I liked really like a lot of purple stuff when I was a kid, I guess.
They were also the cooler vehicles usually.
There's
Like
there's
until
two
like
crazy stories.
but
I was going to say there's two crazy stories or things about Astro Train. Obviously, one, he was one of the first figures with ball and socket joints in the shoulders. And then the other one that's even more crazy is, it's funny you mentioned him being like obviously a Decepticon. He was intentionally originally going to be an Autobot, hence the white and black color scheme. And then, of course, they changed it last minute because there wasn't enough Decepticons and gave him the other color scheme. So that's really cool.
It's cool how there was like variations of them out there as well. And same thing with all the G1 toys. Like there's all these like odd variations here and there. And then like, they were released other places with different color schemes, different characters. And it's like, I don't know, there's something special about
Platinum
that.
edition in 2015. Yeah.
There's just all kinds of crazy things for Astro Train for so many years, almost 40 years. So it's wild.
Exactly. That's brilliant. Right. So we might have just covered it there, to be honest. So what's your best memory of having a Transformer as a child? So was it your first one, or have you got another? Because for myself, obviously, Optimus Prime was lucky enough that my mum managed to find one for me for Christmas, which I loved, and I still do, and Megatron. But as a child, my best memories of a figure, Scorponok, just because I wouldn't put it down.
Really?
Beast Wars or G1?
Scorponok. Yeah, still G1. So as a child,
G1,
favorite
okay.
memories as a kid.
Interesting. Yeah. That's an interesting one. I wouldn't expect that. I've never had Scorponok as a kid either.
Oh, okay.
A lot of my collection was GoBots, I have to say. Because Transformers were pretty expensive back in the day. And like, I did get Optimus and Megatron under the tree one year, and that was pretty much my best Christmas ever. But like a lot of things that I just did not have. A lot of friends did have them. So like, it was always that treat where you'd go over your friend's house and be like, oh, I got to play with this. I got to play with this.
Yeah, exactly. That's great.
Sure.
Evan, what was yours?
I'm going to reach up and grab another figure. Because it's actually, I think it's the one that kind of set into motion wanting to be a toy designer. So the Technobots, Computron. And it's fun.
That's amazing.
His design is amazing, but when I got him as a child, I got him when I was like 10. It was a birthday gift. Back when you could get aftermarket like G1 toys for like $60 complete out of box. I'm sorry, modern collectors.
It's awful, isn't it?
But so when I was a kid, I was playing with him to death, and I broke Slipstream's head. I think you can still see it. I broke his head off inside Slingshot.
You've got mixed up, buddy. It's Straff and it's Scattershot.
Yeah.
I did. I'm so sorry. Thank you for correcting.
Wait a second, Slingshot. All of a sudden, we're at Superion here.
You're right. Oh God.
It's all right. It's early. It's
early in the morning. But yeah. I had broke his head off inside, and I was distraught. But then like my dad came, he got pliers, he got the head out, and then he just drilled a hole into Strafe and then put like a piece of like copper metal wire in there, and then he glued it, and then it's like never been stronger. And it was like a very quiet like teaching moment where it was just like, hey, just kind of like take a breath and kind of examine the problem, and you can probably figure out what to do next. And that's kind of how you have to tackle like toy design in a way. When you're given a problem, you have to figure out how to solve it.
When you're given a lot of problems.
Yes. And then the issue of cost happens, and you have to cost reduce and all that other fun stuff.
I think all kids, though, we had mixed up combiners, didn't we? I think we were very, very lucky if you had a complete set of fight,
Yeah.
you know, whichever factions. Let's be honest, you know, Menasor normally had an aerial bot and a combaticon somewhere along the lines as kids. They just, my son does exactly the same. I don't know, it's just great to see him do it. And of course, that's what we used to do as kids ourselves. So
Scramble City, right? Like
Scramble City.
exactly that.
Yeah, Combiner was, yeah. I didn't actually answer that question. My fondest memory was playing with Onslaught, which is a very odd. I didn't really have any of the other Combaticons. I just had Onslaught. But we were just talking about this the other day, Evan. Like, there's something about Onslaught's vehicle mode that was so different from everybody else, and it was. I was definitely obsessed with a lot of trucks when I was younger, and just something about that long bed with the gunner turret, like it just had that like kind of wiggle almost to it where you'd play with it, where it was like very different from like, you know, wheeling around all the other cars and trucks. That just like, I don't know, it's always stuck with me as that moment when I was a kid where I was just like, I like really, really love this toy.
It's like you say, because you could put things on it, so it wasn't just an individual toy, it was something that you could make a play set out of, wasn't it? Yeah, I completely agree with that. Definitely. Good answers. Right, okay, so I don't know if you've heard of anything like called the Curse of the UK, which is where we always struggle to get figures, but it goes way back, and it started in J1. For instance, like we never got Blaster, we never got there's so many figures that just weren't. Honestly, Swoop was not released in the UK. There's a huge list. So was there a figure that you really wanted and that perhaps wasn't available for that reason? I don't know, because obviously, like you said, sort of different regions, some toy shops have others, etc. I don't know. For the UK, it was always hard to find the ones that we really wanted.
Fascinating. Which is funny because it's like you guys ended up getting like a whole separate couple waves that the rest of the world never got, because you got a lot of like the Japanese stuff that like was never released and things like that. So that's fascinating. I don't know, Mark, do you have an answer?
It's hard for me to like jump back into those memories because my brain is like fried over the years. It's very fuzzy to jump back in. Usually what ends up happening to me is I'll see something and then that's what triggers a memory. And then I'm like, oh, wow, I remember that. So I think back in those days when I came across images of Transformers that like either another person had, one of my friends, or like even in the comic book where it was like, oh, I really want this guy, and then all of a sudden like that guy just didn't exist, like there was just no toy of that guy, and it was just, oh, what, I guess I can't get this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're invoking things for me as well, because it's like I could never find a G1 Ratchet or Ironhide when I was a kid.
This was my next question. So yeah, we've just segued straight into it. I was going to say an easy way of saying it was the one that you knew was about and couldn't get, and you just pretty much answered it, to be fair.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's good because it's easy to segue into that. And funnily enough, mine was Jetfire. My friends had Jetfire and I never had a Jetfire, so I'd always have to go around his house to play with Jetfire. So that's the memories that come back.
So great. Yeah, it's so great though that you had like, you know, everyone had the friends that like, you know, maybe your friend was a little bit more well off and he had a larger collection than you, and you were just like, oh, he's constantly over there just digging through his toy bin, and you were like, this is great. I love coming over here.
Inferno. And it was just like because he was repackaged for G2, I think, at one point in time, and that's kind of the era that I grew up in. And it's like they had Inferno, and it was like, oh, that's so cool, and I could never find him anywhere as well. So
it's always the way, isn't it? So obviously, I'm talking about the toys. You talked about the cartoons. Do you remember your favorite episode, or even now, what's your favorite episode now? What would you say that you like to watch, or that maybe even inspires you at the moment? Because there's lots of figures coming out from the episode, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's funny because our director has also been rewatching the series, and he like messages us every once in a while about like some of the weird absurdities, and then it's like, yeah, dude, we know, don't worry. Get it in there. So I guess everybody's always like War of the Primitives when they're artists, because it's like the art style and the animation in that episode is phenomenal and amazing. Like it's very Japanese giant robot, like super weird dynamic angles and things like that. My favorite story episode is from season 1, Fire in the Sky, where they introduced Jetfire, because that's when they first kind of introduced like the moral choice of becoming a Decepticon or an Autobot. Wow. And I just liked I don't know, the conflict between Jetfire waking up and just being like, oh, here is my best friend. Oh, my best friend is evil. Oh God, like what do I do? Like
it is that was pretty awakening where Starscream and Jetfire were like homies, and you're like, wow, this is something that is pretty wild.
It hits so many levels as well, where the Decepticons see him and he's like, he's just a big freaking guy. We're just going to give him a big old blaster. And he's like, I'm a scientist. I just look this way. I'm just big. And then it's just like, oh, this is amazing. Like as a kid, that just like blew my mind. So, yeah.
That's a great answer. Great episode as well.
Let's see, G1 episode, obviously they're all amazing. They're all amazing. It's hard, like with any of these questions, it's very hard to just pick out one thing and just be like, this is the one that did it for me. I can shit
about Sandstorm's homieship with Octane, like, so
I really did like see that was yet another episode where you're just like, oh, these guys can be friends, they don't have to be at odds at like all the time. And like, you know, obviously the history like before in Cybertron was just briefly glazed over to you, so you like always wondered, I mean, I know I did, I always wondered, like, you know, what it like the beginning of these guys, were they like friends, now they hate each other, like what brings you to fisticuffs with a guy that you're like basically friends with, all of a sudden like you're on different sides of the map here and you're posed against each other. See, that episode did really strike a chord with me. I love Octane, I love Triple Changers, and I think that's probably because of the Astro Train thing. But also the other episode that like really rings to me is Slazardo with DevCon. Like, you know, that kind of brought in that aspect of they're gonna be like bounty hunters here. Like, wait a second, this is a whole new world of Transformers that I know nothing about.
Isn't that also the episode with Smokescreen and they go gambling at the end? Like, yeah. Like, it's just like, oh, what a weird way to end an episode. Like the Autobots go gambling. Like,
yeah, morally correct. It's interesting you say that though, because I'd forgot that. But funny enough, I've just been reading the comics, and obviously it's either Carnivac or Snarler. Obviously, he's friends with Springer and that in one of the, for like quite a few of the comics. And exactly like you say, he chooses to be like that, and he doesn't want. And I think it's Snarler who, you know, is going to report him back to Megatron, etc. So it's good to see. And of course, I think as we're led to believe, on back on Cybertron before the war started, they were all friends, weren't they? So it's interesting, exactly like you've said, to bring that out. So we might as well ask about the comics as well, though. So did you read comics as well, or was it mainly cartoons? The Generation 1 comics, did you read them? Because again, in the UK we had so many more as well. We were quite lucky.
Yes, you did. And I am currently making my way through the UK stuff because that was a bit of a blind spot in my kind of history of the lore. It's like when I was a kid, there wasn't really a way to get like the trades of the comics because the comics had already like ended its run. I think G2 run was starting, but I didn't understand what was going on. And then it wasn't until IDW started re-releasing those like big like packs where they got the art from Marvel, they were allowed to put Spider-Man back in and everything like that, that it's like I really sat down and reread it. It's like I knew of like the big story beats, like everyone always makes fun of like the car wash of doom and like, hey, Optimus Prime's just ahead for 12 issues and like things like that. My favorite bit of story that happens in the G1 comics, I'm sorry, I'm looking down because I have them down there, so that's why I'm looking at them. I love that Ratchet was essentially the main character for like 3 issues because everybody else was offline and he's like the hero, and he actually is more of like the rival to Megatron than Optimus Prime ever was in the comics. Like it was such a weird thing to do, but it was like so fun. It's like the medic has to fight this war now by himself. What's he gonna do? He's gonna bring back the Dinobots. Yeah, it's just a good story.
And it's even funny if you translate that into the toys, you've got a medic with no head who's going to attack a large gun.
Yeah, and like stick legs that like don't spread apart. Yeah. God.
Okay, so last question related to sort of childhood. Were you lucky enough to get to watch the movie in the cinema?
I was not lucky to watch it in the
Okay.
movies. I actually ended up watching that one at home when it came out on VHS. My mom used to work at the library, and she always used to bring home the episode, the FHE, like the family home entertainment episodes. Like, so that era for me is when I finally got to see that movie. And obviously, like, you know, from then on out, that just solidified Transformers for me forever. I mean, it's the peak of, like, you know, you because growing up watching all the animations, the G1 cartoon, and then, you know, having all the toys, and all of a sudden this like epic movie where obviously they kill Optimus Prime, and you're just so distraught and just you're just like slammed in the face with like just a level of Transformers that is beyond anything, you know, and you're just like, the soundtrack, like everything about that movie is just completely bananas. I still to this day like pop it in every now and then. I did take my wife to go see it when it was redone in the movie theater. So so I could finally actually see it in the movie theater, and how much more awesome it is in the movie theater. Like, as soon as Orson Welles' voice hits, you're just like, you quiver and shake and you just melt into a pool. You're like, this is completely mind-blowing. I kind of wish I saw it like that when I was a kid, because I probably would have lost my mind. But
it's the opposite in the UK. I saw it as a child, but it's not been, to my knowledge, and I keep checking, and I even check as far as London, which is a good 3 hours from where I am. When they've done the reissues, I would travel to London to go and watch it if they put it on the cinema again, but they haven't. None of the anniversaries, but I was looking to see it as a child. What about you, Evan? Were you?
Not as a child, no. I was homesick. It's like I remember everything about the first time I saw it. I was homesick during the weekend. It was a Saturday. I was like laying on the couch under a blanket, and my brother rented it from like our local video store, very similar to Mark, and he popped it in. I was like 9, and then it's like, and immediately it's like, what, like the tonal shift, like, is just like, it's so heavy and everything. And then, it's like, I cried. My brother made fun of me for it when Optimus Prime died. But there have been many like toy conventions recently, like within the last 10-15 years, that have put it in movie theaters as well. So I have been able to experience it in the theater. I'm kind of shocked that it hasn't made its course over there. I'm sorry to hear that. Because it is.
I don't know why. It's even because obviously it was the 25, the 30. We've just, not to my knowledge, and I have been checking, because again, I get a load of people and we just go down in a convoy. It'd be great to do it all with loads, but maybe they will do for the 40th. Who knows? Because that's coming up soon, isn't it? So
we should mention something to franchise and whatnot, or LCP about that. Yeah,
I'm sure it'll do well in the UK. Definitely. Right. So that's the last of the kids ones. So to be fair, I was going to say as you got older, but most of them have already been answered. Obviously, your mom sold your collection or donated your collection for you. So
I still have a Jazz and a Skywarp. Those are the only two that were left. Okay. I don't know why.
You have your Cyclonus too, don't you? Because he's your absolute favorite.
I do have a Cyclonus. That was a later purchase in the collection when I was a kid, but.
So what did you guys move on to then? So when Transformers, because I was the same. In fact, I didn't donate mine. I sold mine at a school fete, as you do. But then I've said a huge gap, and I went on to, I don't even really remember, probably computers, to be honest, in the early 90s, let's be honest. So what did you guys move on to before you came back to the brand?
Pokemon exploded when I was a kid. There was the Pokemon Digimon Wars that I somehow survived.
Turtles got me. I
I
got swept up in Turtles, man. Hardcore.
Yeah, I understand that as well.
Zoids
was big. Like essentially, I started diving deep into like model kits, so like Gundam and everything else as well. But it was like my brother and I would still kind of go to the toy store like every once in a while and just be like, oh, let's just see what's going on. And then it wasn't until I think like Armada hit that I was like, okay, I'm buying Transformer toys again. So like,
I actually Beast Wars is the thing that hopped me back in. because I did leave Transformers for quite a while. I was playing sports and like, you know, I actually was reading like a lot of Marvel comics at the time because my same thing with Evan, my older brother got me into this stuff like really, really young. So like West Coast Avengers, I was just like obsessed with, which is a really odd series to be obsessed with. But
yeah, of all the teams, yeah, like
so
War Machine, like yeah,
so
yeah.
strange, dude. Wonder Man and
Yeah.
Scarlet Witch. I was all in on that series. I have no idea why. I still have a lot of them, but I left for a while, but then like, you know, still paid attention. Like I said, Turtles was big, and then you know, I got back in once that morning cartoon hit, Beast Wars, that was played right after reboot. I think it's
because
Reboot.
that was Mainframe Entertainment, so it was the same company. Yeah.
Once that hit, I was like totally back in.
That's great. Okay, a couple of simple versus questions just to see. I already know Mark Lone's answer to this one. Autobots or Decepticons? Yours is obviously Decepticons. What's Evans? Oh, brilliant. There we go.
So
That's it for me as well, as I say, because obviously everybody loves Optimus Prime, but my favourite toy was Scorponok, so I'm proper in the middle. So it's really hard. All right, comics or cartoons?
Cartoons.
it depends. Like, are we doing G1 or are we including everything? Because it's like
let's do G1 and then we'll do everything. So G1, comics or cartoons?
Okay, if it's G1, then it's the cartoon for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Cartoon.
Okay. Blaster or Soundwave?
Soundwave.
I'd have to go Soundwave. Yeah.
Got to be, hasn't it? Galvatron or Megatron?
Megs.
Megs.
Nimoy does a great Galvatron, but yeah, it's got to be Megs.
I mean, I love the Galvatron toy, like because of all the lights and sounds and whatnot. I mean, that was just a really awesome toy. But the ting that you get from the trigger on Megatron is like will forever solidify that noise.
Yeah.
Got to be, hasn't it? Right. Okay. So, all right. So basically about the movie as well. Is Cyclonus, Bombshell, or Skywalk?
Oh man, this old one.
That's the old
I own
one.
a Bombshell, so I'm gonna say Bombshell. And
I'm just gonna say Bombshell because I like Insecticons more than the Seekers. So I'm just like, yeah, Bombshell.
Here's an even worse one for you then. So, what color is Rumble?
Oh,
is he red or is he blue?
We both agree on this, actually. Me and Evan.
Yeah.
We've talked
Rumble
about
is blue for me.
Yeah, definitely blue.
So,
Rumble is blue.
Yeah,
Rumble's blue.
That was the whole thing when we were doing the Rumble for Studio Series, when we were going back and forth with the car Tomy, and they were just like, we have established that Rumble is red. And then it's like, that's fine. But in the movie and the cartoon series, he is blue. So we are going to make him blue. And then it's like, okay, we just have to put like the hyphenated blue after his name. And then
the movie solidified it for me for sure. Like that's Rumble.
Definitely. Okay, one more of these, but this is more newer, obviously, so more current. So that's the word we're after. Siege, Earthrise, or Kingdom. Which was your favourite of them three, of the cartoons, and maybe and then the toy lines after. So cartoons first, then toy lines after. And obviously, you guys were involved with this, so this is going to be tough, isn't it?
This is a very tough question, man. This is a very
for the trilogy. I would say Siege, just because, as Mark was talking about before, it established Cybertron. Granted, it was still the beginnings of the war. It wasn't, it's always like, you know, when they want to tell a story, they're telling it like right then and there. And it's like, well, can we go a little bit further back or something like that? But I liked seeing Cybertron, and I like the Siege toys. I like Cybertronian modes. I think we could have pushed them a little bit farther to be a little bit weirder, but
interesting.
Yeah. This is a good question for you. So how come in all the Cybertronian modes of the vehicles, why is there a cockpit to fit a human?
I mean, if you want to go from the aligned continuity, it's because of the Quintessons or whatever. But yeah, saying that they could ride around in them, we'll say that.
Okay, that'll do.
Yeah. We'll have to ask Johnny Warden if there was like a Diaclone pilot that he was trying to get in there out of, like, I mean, we were just coming like, we had the Titan Wars, which had like, you know, little headmasters and Titan masters. Yes. So maybe he was thinking like, ooh, maybe I do like a little pilot with these guys. And I don't know.
I know his original plan was to partial everything to do the Earth modes, but that didn't really end up happening. It only kind of happened for a few of them. But
Yeah.
then it's like, yeah, like Prowl, like that's a completely new figure.
Yeah.
Between the Earthrise and the Siege
It's
version.
true, very true.
So,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, I'd agree with you on the cartoon Siege for sure. And then toys is actually it's really tough for me because when yeah, Kingdom kind of almost like slapped me around. And I was like, this is banana. Because John came down with like this, you know, grown Cheetor figure, and it was a super realistic cheetah. And I was just like, is this going to happen? Because it was just a, you know, a grown robot mode and a grown cheetah. And I was just like, I was like, you're expecting to transform this into this realistic beast. I was like, you're completely out of your mind. I was like, that's just not going to happen, man. And so, you know, I painted them up and I was just like, all right, let's see what happens. And then like, once they started hitting, and the first one that I saw, actually, Takara Tomy came over, showed Black Arachnia. And that was the one that just like, dude, Black Arachnia prototype had like little flocking on it. And it, because that was like the original thought process, we were like gonna get flocking and just go completely insane, like our like sculpt detail, flocking, like realistic beast, like this thing's gonna be insane. So at that time period, I was completely blown away. I was knocked out of my socks. I was just like, I can't even believe we're actually getting like, you know, realistic beast modes for Beast Wars characters, because, you know, the early toys, as cool as they were, they just weren't realistic. You know what I mean? So
no, I mean, you're reusing the same body of a cheetah for a tiger, even though they are just proportions are so completely different. So yeah.
So that, I gotta say, for toys, it was Kingdom for me.
Yeah,
it's interesting about Kingdom because, again, Beast Wars was a whole era originally that I completely missed. And funnily enough, even through all the figures that I collected over the years, I wasn't interested in the Beast Wars until Kingdom. And then exactly, I think what Mark's just said there, he's nailed it. I thought, well, I've got to get this Cheetor to have a look at it. And now I find myself on eBay seeing if I can find some of the original ones. And I know they're not as good, but it's just good to go back and see, isn't it? And see what, because that was one of the phases that I completely missed out. But those great answers. So this sort of, again, segues into where we're going now. So obviously I've got, this is a bit of a jokey one, to be fair. So are retractable fists still a thing? Because if you remember all the old figures like Mindwipe, Overlord, you just could slide the fists out. Whereas now you've got lots of, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest, the fists come out and there's normally a hole in the forearm. I'm not bothered, but some people are, because there's all these gap fillers. So are retractable fists, Soundwave had them as well. Are they still a thing?
Soundwave had them, yeah.
Are they so old school? Soundwave and Blaster, are they so old school that they're not even considered anymore?
That's interesting. That's an interesting question. You know what? I think the evolution of that was like Impactor, like where like his arm like swivels and you have the 5mm post and then the fist kind of goes in the forearm. Yeah. That innovation I really enjoyed, because I like how, like, you know, how a lot of Transformers can just like all of a sudden have a gun hand, like or whatever hand, like a grappling hook or whatever. So I love that for that toy, because, you know, he had the harpoon spear arm, but he also could have the hand. That like really reigned supreme in my eyes. But I don't think I've ever even thought to bring back the push out fists, Evan. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I'm going through my mental Rolodex here, and it's just like, yeah, I'm trying to really just like the assembly was more difficult.
Well. I've got Grimlock, and he's exactly as well. No, his is the one where you slide it out, isn't it? So there's they just pop out, don't they? So it's
interesting. Let's take a look at that, Evan. Let's bring it back.
I know. I'm trying to think of like what possible reason that we're not doing it, and I can't think of one.
I can't either.
Yeah,
it's just something that I thought. I was just looking at. I picked up again one of the figures, and I was like, "That's really," because of course Cosmos has got the big gap, and then just them, I was like, well, that's so much easier. I mean, obviously, as long as it's not a huge, whatever it is, slider, but I don't know. It's just something that I thought of, and I thought, who better to ask you guys? All right. So obviously, how much time? What do you generally get? A lot of time to play with the figures to make sure that they're okay, or that they work, or that they're to your satisfactory standards. Is they play testers, or are you guys the play testers?
This is a tough one. This is a tough one. Evan, you wanna go first?
I mean, it's us, and I'm trying to think, like, the first time that we really kind of get into it is when we're doing like instruction reviews, to make sure that things are functioning. And when we're reviewing it, then it's usually a grown model, so it's a rapid prototyped piece.
Gray
And
model.
trying to be
Gray
like,
model.
please don't break, please don't break. This model's like $1,000. Like, yeah. But then it's like when you get the EP1 in, which is like our first engineering pilot, where they use the tools, but the colors are rainbow or whatever. That is usually when it's like, yeah, we're going, here we go. Yeah, like, yeah. I guess that's how I would put it. Like, do we have enough time? Like, we take as much time as we need to make sure that.
Yeah, we work through the night on some of those. I remember when we just came back from break and I had like 13 toys to review, and it was just like they need to be like, responded to immediately, because this thing's like sitting on a production line ready to roll, but like they need comments to, adjust, like, the shoulders, or like adjust this little tampo hit, or maybe this has a little smudge on it. I mean, you got to call all that stuff out, and it's like, these things are super, super detailed. There's like insanity to every single one of them. So it does take some time, and like you try to do the best you possibly can in the time that you are allotted. You know what I mean? So it is overwhelming though at sometimes, for sure.
It also helps. We're usually not the only ones doing it. We also have a team of engineers that are also reviewing them, and they will also find things that we maybe missed.
Which thank goodness.
But as far as how long it takes,
as long as it takes
hours, like
hours.
I wish we could. Yeah, it's like it would be
I
great
because you guys obviously you've got you've got to learn what's the best way to transform it. You've got to learn the instruction process, haven't you? You can't just like you take that leg out and you can't move the arm or something. So it's even more difficult for you. You've just got like a blank canvas, haven't you? But I suppose it's like the way I justify it to myself, and I still buy them now, is they're Rubik's cubes, they're puzzles. So they're and that's the best thing about it, isn't it? It's see if you can crack the puzzle. I mean, they even did it on G1, didn't they, with 6-shot? They kept the instructions wrapped up, didn't they? And you had to see if you could do it yourself.
That's actually been my like favorite, almost one of my favorite things at working at Hasbro. When I was working in the prototyping department, I didn't have any sight to the actual design development with the designers. So like I was kind of outside of that, and I would work with the designer once the gray model came in. But once the gray model came in, I sat there and I got to transform it without any instructions or anything. And like Evan said, they're like fragile models. So that experience was just, I love that. Like when the new crop of gray models came in, it was just like, oh, here we go. Like, let's
know what
see
was coming, or
correct.
So it's just like, what character is this? Like, yeah.
And then you'd have the alt heads also with those gray model prototypes. So then I would like look into the future and be like, ooh, who's this gonna be? Like, who's this head? And it was quite the guessing game and quite the puzzle play. And I actually really, really missed that half of it.
Brilliant. What's your favorite project then you've both been lucky enough to work on?
That's a tough one too.
Well, I'm just asking what I think everybody wants to know, and me obviously.
It's like there's stuff coming down the line that I think is gonna take tops that we can't talk about just yet.
I understand.
But stuff that we have worked on. That's a good question.
I'll jump in. The Jaxus and the Tarn items that I got to work on with Yuya-san, like especially the Jaxus, because something that like sat with me for a long time was that deluxe that was off of the Armada Starscream that ended up being like the orange colors. Yeah. That like didn't sit well with me from the color seat when I was in the painting of the prototypes. I just always wanted that like pearlescent white with the green wings. It's just a wild character looking dude, and plus his character persona in the comics is awesome. So, and the head sculpt, everything with the tubes and everything, it's just like that character really solidified a lot of things for me. Going forward, where I was just like, man, this guy, articulation,
is in so many people's top 10s, top 5s. So that figure, you go on the internet, since Jax is in so many. So yeah, I completely can see why you're saying that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
if I had to pick one, but So
So
go ahead,
sort
Evan.
of similar questions. Oh, sorry, Evan's first, Nicosia.
Uh,
Say it. Say it.
well, so I think the core class Dinobots that I've been working on that are a combiner, that was a lot of back and forth to kind of prove that it could be done at core class. And just kind of getting there where it's like, we can do a combiner at core class. We're going to make this happen. And
That's brilliant.
seeing it kind of come together. I'm hoping everybody is enjoying the 2 pieces that are out right now. And
There's already people combining it, using people like using.
I
pieces of
did
scrap
see
or-
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
I love that whole thing that exploded in the fandom with the building and everything is just
the
fascinating.
weaponizer stuff. Yeah, like that whole build system is absolutely genius. So I'm hoping we
That's
can just
probably-
continue that.
Probably answers what I'm going to ask now, to be honest. So, what was your idea that you were most surprised that was agreed to? Something you pitched and you thought they're never going to go for this, and they did. So, is it that?
No, I mean, selling in Dinobots is so easy. Like,
Of course, yeah.
so like you go to our marketing team and it's like, they're dinosaurs, and everyone's like, kids love dinosaurs, and that's all you have to do. But and then it was like, oh yeah, by the way, they're a combiner, and then it was just like that was it. Again, there's a couple projects coming that we have coming this year that I think I was shocked I was able to kind of like get going.
Japanese
so-
stuff.
Yeah, so there's some exclusives coming down the line where people are going to be like, oh, and then it's like, I'm hoping that's their reaction at least, and it's a pleasant oh, but we'll see.
It was my reaction, so I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone else will have that reaction. There's like Evan said, there's a couple things that are coming out that I'm just like really, really amped about. As far as I can't believe I like kind of shifted this by the system and swung it out there. And got like approvals from everybody and selling in stuff. But there's been quite a lot actually that I've worked on that I'm just like, wow. Like, well, I mean, Jax's, going back to him, I didn't realize that we'd ever be able. Yeah, I mean, that was actually a last minute change from another project where it was like that actually wasn't slated until the last minute, which is something that I was like, ooh, we could slip this guy in right here. Like, oof, like this is going to be great. You know what I mean? And I was really surprised that from there on, I think that hit a stride for me in a way where I was just like, oh, okay, you kind of learn how to manipulate the line to get certain characters kind of swindled in there,
bit,
you know?
I think that's it. I think, as you say, I think obviously this is sort of another question, but a statement going on with what you're saying, basically. Obviously, due to the success of Victory Saber and Deathsaurus now, and indeed Galaxy Shuttle, I know you can't say anything, but it's pretty much, it looks that way, that, you know, more of these more, as you've just said, shall we say, obscure characters or less known figures, it looks like there's lots more of them coming our way, and you've got so many people, as you say, guessing what's coming, etc. Do you think that seems to be the mentality now that Hasbro are looking at and thinking, actually, there's a market for this and we can do well off it?
I mean, the response, the overwhelming positive response is definitely great fuel and ammunition that we can use to like make these arguments. We will always fight for those characters to get in there. And I'm hoping that, yes, we're getting more of them soon. So
that's good.
Yeah, there's like a lot of white space, and there's like a lot of, like I've always said, Transformers universe is bigger than the Marvel universe. There's so many characters that we have not even like scratched the surface. Yeah, we haven't even scratched the surface at some point. Like, I understand like the A tier characters, Optimus and Bumblebee, are what everybody knows and everybody loves, but I really do want to like continue on with the obscure and just like try to get the characters that are super strong designs, and like their personas and like their comic appearances are really great. And like, you know, I think everyone should have that opportunity to have that toy in their collection, because, you know, there's a spot next to there's a spot on that shelf that needs to be filled. So that's what we're trying to do.
I always view it as like every character is somebody's favorite. And it's like some people have just been waiting for so long. And it's just like, you know, there was the one figure that came out in the 80s and then they never saw him again, or her. And it's just like, I'm sorry. And it's like, I know. And here's your 40th Optimus Prime for the year. But like,
did you see that crazy statistic last year alone? There was over 100 Optimus Prime related figures released in just 2022 over 100 different Optimus Primes. So from all the toy lines and toy ranges that you do, just Optimus Prime over 100 in 1 year.
Okay, I did not
Wild.
collect all of that stuff, thankfully.
That's okay.
I would explode.
Yeah, I mean the kid
Uh,
stuff, the stuff that's for the kids and like, you know, are like new consumers, like you know, I obviously the main characters of the entertainment and stuff, those are what's gonna like, you know, push the kid to like want to get involved in Transformers. And I think that's the reason why a lot of that happens. But for like, you know, our collector lines, like, you know, that we're getting like the opportunity to work on. Me and Evan have been fans for a long time. We kind of just been sitting back for a long time, like waiting for the
silently judging what the team was doing.
For me, I can't believe you did this, guy. I cannot believe you did Puffer. I cannot fathom.
Right?
I mean, it's insane. But I suppose, of course, it's a use of a mold you've already got, hasn't it? It's brilliant.
It's just a great, it's like something like that is an obscure G1 thing that, like, you know, kind of everybody knows about. Like everybody knows about the Puffer. Like, why don't I have a new figure of Puffer? And that Golden Disc series was like a perfect opportunity to like seed them in, because that Huffer mold, yet again, and the Pipes mold, those came out super, like, awesome to me. I love the mini cons that we've been doing at deluxe scale, like that started before me, and
Bots,
the mini bots, sorry about that. And it just like I'm obsessed with the mini bots since I was a young kid, especially like those G2 variants that were like all metallic, like the metallic green beachcomber. I love that.
Yeah, I've got some of the crazy South American ones, like the Silver Bumblebee and that.
Oh, whoa!
The rook, is that like a rook right there?
The Silver Bumblebee, but you can, I mean, that's Malignus, which is a brawn, which is the purple brown. The South American, there's loads. You can just go on forever and ever, couldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And why not? Like, why not? If yet again, what Evan said, if that's your favorite dude, oh wow, that's a crazy.
That's neon beachcomber. Yeah,
that's a Spanish Thesema beachcomber.
Early 90s. That's bananas. See that there's just so much joy in that. There's so much joy in bringing that new toy in.
Great. Right, we're nearly there. Last couple. So obviously the Fans First Tuesdays, the Fans First Fridays, wherever you do, they're brilliant. There's so many people, because I'm always in the chat as well having a look. And it's great to get the reveals and see them on there. But unfortunately, sometimes obviously things get leaked a little early, or people, however they manage to acquire them, they do. How does that make you feel though? If you are, because I can imagine you're sitting on something, you know, it's the day of I'm going to do this. I've got all these to show off. And unfortunately, 2 or 3 days before someone's got it already. It must really annoy you.
It sucks when you can't control how someone gets a first impression of something that you've worked on, whether it's a toy, a book, movie, whatever.
Yeah,
that's the one thing because it's like a lot of those leaks are just like mistransformed in a corner in terrible lighting, and you're just looking at it like, oh, come on, like that's the horrible beauty shot right there. And it's like, and then you're reading the comments of people judging it, and it's just like, and it's like, and then it's misconverted, and it's just like, like, yeah.
It's been a wild ride with that whole entire scene, really. Like Evan said, I think it's the mistransformations that gets us revved up.
Totally. Like I say, you guys have worked on something for ages, and you want to be there to put it out, don't you? And exactly that. If it's just appears on a computer screen, and it's like sometimes it might get a positive reaction. You can look at it and think, oh, that's amazing, but it still wouldn't be the same as you saying, look at this, look what we've done. This is what we've worked on. So unfortunately, as you say, it happens. I just wanted to ask you guys, sorry, you were going to say something.
the whole story of like the creation of this guy and like all of his abilities is kind of like a little bit lost when, like, like I was saying, when I get a gray model, like in the early prototype stage that I know nothing about, I don't know all the abilities of the toy. And I really I'm trying to figure out the transformation on my own without knowing what the actual final mode should look like. So there's a lot of things you miss, basically, and I think that's the thing that gets to us
a little bit. And then it's like we work 2 years in advance, right? And so it's like, these things have it takes a while. These are complex items. By by the time you get the fully color prototype and like, you know, and everything's looking good and you're like, okay, I can set this aside and we'll reveal this when we can. And then it's like, hey, it's online. And it's like, okay, well, moving on. I feel nothing. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, this has been amazing. I've got one final question, and I already know the answer, but if you don't ask, you don't get. Can you tease, cryptic clue, or give any minuscule exclusive detail of a new project or figure that is coming up, just as to tease? You don't have to say an exact thing. You know that when you did, obviously, Tarn appeared in the artwork. Is there anything maybe for this particular channel and this video that you could be allowed to say? I totally understand if you can't, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you don't ask, you don't get.
Well, I mean, to point out that evolution poster, I mean, obviously we always try to seed in the Easter eggs for everybody to go down those portals of oh, are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? Is this completely absurd to do? I don't think it is. You should always expect the unexpected at this point in time.
Actually, I'm sorry, one more. Sorry, it's just coming to my head. So obviously the fossilizers were intended to combine. Well, I think they were. Does that mean that the Junkians are as well? They must be, because Junkian 2 looks like a leg to me. Looks like a foot at the back of his seat, and he looks like a leg. That's my thoughts anyway. So Mark, I could see him. So
well, I mean, like the fossilizers, it was great that in the end Hasui-san actually like worked out like that combiner that I showed off in the end, like with the wing finger, wow, Paleotrex, and Ractinite. That something like that obviously was like, you know, a major thing that everyone's just like, oh wow, that's really cool. And I mean, why would we step away from anything that's, you know, gives our fandom and our consumers the opportunity to just like, you know, run wild with your imagination. Like the build system is just bananas, and the stuff that people have been doing already with just one scrap hook or two scrap hooks is like, you know, that's the beauty of the new Junkions, is that it's not only the robot modes, it's also the vehicle modes, which is very different from your fossilizers. Plus the transformation sequence is solidified, unlike the parts forming of some of the fossilizers. So those were all wins on the Junkions for sure.
That's brilliant.
Do you have anything to add on that, Evan?
No, I mean, I think you hit the big points where you just said it's a building system. You can build
whatever you
giant
want.
Robots if you want.
Giant robots, dirt bikes, whatever you want.
Things, I don't know, seeded in to make that easier. I don't know. So yeah. But I guess that's it. Yeah.
Brilliant. So thank you both ever so much for this. It really has been an extreme pleasure and some fun as well. So yeah, if there's anything else you'd like to say, I'd like to wrap this video up now. Thank you very much for joining me, and we look forward to, in fact, do you know the date of the next Fans First, or the Friday or Tuesday? Do you know that?
It's coming soon. So I guess everybody should just be on the lookout for that announcement. I think we're allowed to say that, but there will be one coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice. Yeah, it'd be nice to just throw it out there. I don't know. It's very soon. It's very soon, though.
Yeah.
Perfect. There you go. Lovely. Thank you ever so much for joining me, guys. It's really been a pleasure. Thanks ever so much. Have a good day.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us as well.
We should do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So
would love that. Yeah, it's rare me and Evan get a little bit of opportunity and time to just sit back, let our hair down and talk toys, basically. Unlike when as soon as Evan came on the brand, I was just harassing Evan day and night on Teams, just like constantly berating.
11 o'clock, midnight. And then it was just like, he's not stopping. I'm trying to go to bed.
I was so excited. I was so excited to get someone on the brand that has been like, you know, absolutely faithful and a diehard fan for so many years. Because when Evan was on Creo, and a lot of people probably don't know this, he was working on all those Creo Transformers. There was a shift in Creo where I like started to see figures coming out on Creo where I was just like, wait 1 minute, like this character selection seems like a little rare to me. And then I started looking into it, and then come to find out in the end, it was all Evan just seeding in all of this insanity, where I was just like, yes, here he is, he's coming. I was so excited about it. That's why I've been torturing him nonstop.
You're obviously an absolute pleasure and joy to work with, Mark. So because of your history and passion as well, and your absolute skills and knowledge of the brand.
Thanks, man. And you know what? Love the channel, dude. You're doing great things with Transformers. Keep up the good work. I mean, anyone that, you know, has the diehard passion like you do, and throws it out there for everyone to consume and watch and listen to, that's what we're all about.
Oh yeah, I have referenced your videos once or twice, because a couple of years ago I had a project I was working on, and we didn't have a toy of what I was looking with in the office, so I was just like, oh, I got to find a YouTube video, and you had it. You did turns, and it was like, yes, this is everything I needed. So yeah.
Perfect. Again, I mean, if I could be of assistance with any of the figures that are behind me at any point, you know exactly where to find me anyway. So yeah, that would be a great
collection. Is magnificent. So yeah,
great A.
But yeah, pleasure doing this.
Excellent.
Sure.
Take care, guys.
Have a good one.